Video games give you the opportunity to be anything, and the weapons you carry around can be ridiculous. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the 10 most overpowered weapons of all time. Starting off with number 10, the big boy from Fallout 4. Now, the Fallout games have always had their fair share of ridiculously powerful weapons, but here's one gun that just stands head and shoulders above the rest, the Fat Man. A handheld nuclear missile launcher, which is exactly as devastating as it sounds. Just one of these things can clear out entire groups of enemies. Only downside though, at least in Fallout 3, there's a pretty limited supply of mini nukes to find, so eventually you do run out. This is not the case in Fallout 4, where there is an unlimited supply of these things, and an even more powerful version of the Fat Man to find. The big boy is actually pretty easy to find too. You just buy it from Arturo in Diamond City, and the thing makes it so powerful that instead of just shooting one mini nuke, you actually shoot two, free of charge. Combine that with the Merv launcher mod, and you can make this thing launch like a ludicrous 12 mini nukes, while only costing one to actually fire. It sounds like the most overpowered weapon ever, and I mean seriously, it fires 12 nukes. There is one huge drawback though. Because of the way nukes cluster after firing, it makes it so the weapon's range is drastically reduced, which makes it as likely to kill you as your enemy. It's a pretty severe downside, but it's also pretty appropriate. I mean, it's a weapon where you throw a nuclear bomb using a handheld catapult, so there should be some element of danger there, right? And number 9 is the energy sword from Halo 2. If there's one weapon to rival the pistol from Halo 1 in the series, it's the energy sword, especially the one from Halo 2. We've gone on endlessly about the M60 personal defense weapon system, aka the pistol in Halo Combat Evolved, so for this list we thought we'd talk about a weapon that was practically unstoppable back in the day. Considered a power weapon, the energy sword was meant to be strong, but I don't know that Bungie quite realized the monster they'd unleashed. The thing wasn't just strong. In the right hands, it was pretty much unstoppable. In its original incarnation, this thing had a lunge range that made it so you're basically flying through the air, auto-locking on anyone who came close. If players knew someone had an energy sword, at least they had a few ways to counter it, but in Halo 2, all you had to do was keep the sword hidden by switching to another weapon, and only using it when you got close enough. The sword would appear totally invisible, and swapping weapons was nearly instantaneous, so there's really no reason not to use this strategy. Once players learned the maps and knew where to get the energy sword, then that was it. Whoever got the sword was basically the winner, especially if you were just playing split screen with your friends. Later Halo games weakened the energy sword considerably, but in Halo 2 it was king. And number 8 is the Noob Tube from Modern Warfare 2. Now, Modern Warfare 2 is a game we all look back very fondly on, but man, the multiplayer was busted as hell. Some of the most legendary overpowered weapons of all time come from this game, like stuff like the knife, the Model 1887 Akimbo, and this entry, maybe the cheesiest of all cheese weapons. The underslung grenade launcher attachment wasn't great in Call of Duty 4, but the grenade spamming really was out of control in Modern Warfare 2 for a few reasons. For one thing, the weapon was easy to use. All you had to do was point and shoot, and you were pretty much guaranteed a free kill. There was really only one downside, the ammo limit. You could only carry 2 grenades. You'd think that would limit its usefulness a little bit, but not really. Get the Danger Close perk to increase the grenade's splash damage, and the One-Man Army perk that lets you switch classes whenever you want. One-Man Army is really the thing that broke the Noob Tube right open, because swapping classes at any time made it so you could simply switch classes when you ran out of ammo and get a free refill of grenades. There was a slight delay when you swapped classes, but it didn't kill you or penalize you anyway, so you could easily just find a good hiding spot, line up a shot, and just constantly pelt an objective with grenades for the entire match with no repercussions whatsoever. Like, yeah, someone could hunt you down and kill you, but other than that, you really weren't limited in any way. It was a weapon that required almost no skill to use, and it could be used endlessly, and there's a reason why the One-Man Army perk only appears in Modern Warfare 2 and nowhere else in the series, because it allows for nonsense like this. At number 7 is the blue shell from the Mario Kart series. Officially, it's referred to as the spiny shell, but we all know and despise it as the blue shell, so that's what we're calling it. If you've played a Mario Kart game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a weapon that you can get that does one thing. It beelines for the player in first place and hits them. That is all it does, but it does it well. In most cases, trying to avoid it will just put you in a worse position, so really all you can do is sit there and take it and hope that it doesn't cause you to lose the race. That's what sucks so much about these things. They help level the playing field for other racers, but most of the time what ends up happening is that if you're in first place, randomly you'll get hit by this thing and end up losing the race at the last second. It's not even that great for the person that uses it. Usually the only way you'll get one of these things is if you're near the bottom of the rankings. So even if you do hit the player in first, you're not going to really jump up to first place. Most of the time, you just make it so that the second or third place guy wins instead. Still, its overpoweredness can't be denied. It's a weapon that auto-homes in on whoever's in first place, and it doesn't stop for anything. There's one weapon in Mario Kart 8 that can be used to counter it, but if you don't have it, then you're out of luck. There's nothing worse than that grim realization that the blue shell is coming your way and you can't do anything to stop it. It's kind of like being aware of your own death, and you're just counting the seconds till it happens. Most of the other weapons on this list are probably more legitimately overpowered, but none of them are capable of the psychological damage caused by a blue shell. At number 6 is the Rhino from the Ratchet & Clank series. Rhino, short for Rip You a New One, is a recurring gun in the Ratchet & Clank series, and while it appears in pretty much every main game, it actually never functions the same way twice. The one thing they do have in common is that they're all purposefully overpowered. Generally, they're the last gun that you can unlock, and it's basically meant to break the game and let you cut loose. In some ways, it's kind of like a cheat in a world where cheats really don't happen a lot anymore. Probably the most powerful of all of them is the Rhino, with the number 3 in the middle, like a Fast and Furious movie title. We'll call it the Rhino 3 from here. It's from the third Ratchet & Clank game, Up Your Arsenal. When fully upgraded, it just totally vaporizes every enemy on screen with a bright flash of light. Other versions of the gun are more like crazy laser miniguns. They're really powerful, but not quite up there with what is essentially a screen nuke with the Rhino 3. In Rift Apart, Rhino's especially unusual. Instead of a laser, basically it just opens up a portal to another dimension, which pulls in stuff from various other PlayStation games that cause a massive explosion when they hit the ground. There are at least 11 variations of this one weapon, making it one of the most prolific, intentionally overpowered guns in gaming. There's almost nothing consistent about the Rhino other than the name and how overpowered it is. It's a weapon that's both ridiculous and creative, and always fun to track down in these games, if only to see what they come up with next. At number 5 is the Rivers of Blood Katana in Elden Ring. You could make an entire list of overpowered weapons just in Elden Ring. That is going to be a long list too, but for this entry, we're going to focus on maybe the most obvious choice. Katanas in Elden Ring are powerful as it is. Bleeding in Elden Ring is also very powerful, and if you combine these things, they're basically unstoppable. The only downside of this thing is it takes a while to get. It's found right before you get to the summit of the mountaintop of the giant, so basically at the end game, but once you have it, there's practically nothing that can stand against you. And that's only like halfway an exaggeration. You can still die pretty easily in the game, but with Rivers of Blood, you'll be killing things just as quickly. Bosses' HP just melts when they get hit by this thing's weapon art. It causes a ton of bleed buildup really quickly along with its already very damaging attacks. And you can kill a lot of the toughest bosses in literally seconds with the proper application of this thing. It's wild, and some additional augmentation and a second weapon makes you even more overpowered. It's just an all-around beastie sword that makes anyone with a dexterity build into a killing machine. There's almost not that much else to say about it. It's so good it kind of speaks for itself, and the Rivers of Blood Katana isn't something you'll be able to use the entire game, but when you get it, it's a game changer. And number 4 is the Metal Blade from Mega Man 2. Number 5 was something new, so let's have a look at something old. The Metal Blade from Mega Man 2 is a classic. Like, few things can compare to just how easy to get, versatile, and powerful this weapon is. Most of the time, boss weapons in Mega Man games are supposed to be situational. They can be good for specific situations, and of course, you'll want to use whatever power a boss is weak against, but they're rarely a substitute for the standard Mega Buster. Not with Metal Blades. You can go pretty much the entire game using these things. For one, Metal Man's probably the easiest boss in the game, and taking him out with your standard shots isn't a lot of trouble, so there's no reason not to get this weapon first. With it, you can fire projectiles in 8 different directions, making it a much more effective weapon in most situations. And on top of that, its ammo consumption is extremely minimal, and with the way ammo drops are in Mega Man, you'll very rarely run out of ammo. It's great against bosses, too. For some reason, not just one Robot Master is weak to the Metal Blade, like normal. Instead, 3 different bosses are specifically weak to this attack, and it's still incredibly good against bosses that aren't weak to it. It's basically the perfect Mega Man weapon, and it's easily the most overpowered weapon in the entire series. Seriously, it's legendary for how overpowered it is. Mega Man games are known for their difficulty, but the Metal Blade makes certain situations totally trivial. And number 3 is the Plasma Cutter from Dead Space. Like the pistol from Halo, the Plasma Cutter is a basic weapon that's supposed to be just one weapon in an arsenal, but ends up being way more. This thing's so good, it basically ended up being a meme. It's a weapon you get right at the start, and you never need to use another weapon again. There's a couple of reasons for this. It's great for pretty much any situation, and its ability to fire either vertically or horizontally make it exceptional for cutting the limbs off of the necromorphs, the primary threat in the game. Another reason to use this thing is the ammo. It's supposed to be a survival horror game, so ammo's meant to be scarce, but if you use the Plasma Cutter and nothing else, then that's the only ammo enemies will drop, so you pretty much never run out of ammo as long as you don't buy any other weapons. It's relatively easy to upgrade too, which makes it even more powerful, fire faster, and so on. It's just an all-around great weapon that's both iconic and really good. Once you figure out how effective it is, you almost have to force yourself to try other weapons, if only to balance the game out a little bit. And number 2, it's the Christogram from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Another classic. This is not the hardest game out there, and there are a lot of ways to break it wide open and make yourself unstoppable, but probably the easiest and most straightforward way is to just get this weapon. What makes it so much better than everything else is very simple. While its stats aren't quite as good as some other weapons, it has one little bonus effect that makes it extremely overpowered. Every time you attack, instead of slashing once like you would expect, it slashes 4 times in very quick succession, so it basically does 4 times as much damage as a standard sword. It's one-handed too, so you can even equip 2 of them at once to destroy anything that stands in your way. The only downside to it is getting it. The only way to find one is to farm these headless enemies in the Forbidden Library called Shmoo, and eventually they do drop one, but sometimes it can take quite a while. Like, there are times where it will take a few minutes, and there will times where it takes a few hours. So the chances of this weapon dropping are pretty low, but once you have one, the game is basically solved. And finally, at number 1, the Farsight XR20 from Perfect Dark. It doesn't get more overpowered than this. I honestly have no idea what the designers of Perfect Dark were thinking with this one, other than, wow, this will be awesome. And it is. It's very awesome for the person using it, but for everyone else, not so much. The Farsight XR20 is a baffling weapon that has the ability to shoot through walls, has an X-ray mode so you can see through walls, and to top it off, it can auto-target just to really make this thing overpowered as hell. Seriously, being able to see through walls and kill people is bad enough, but they also make it so you can auto-target as well, so you don't even really need to look around, just mash the auto lock and fire. And did I mention this thing's a sniper rifle too? It can zoom in and it's powerful as hell. In the campaign, it's fun to play with, and there's no real problem, it's just an overpowered weapon. But in multiplayer, it can really only be 2 things. Some goofy fun where everyone has one, or a nightmare where only one player does and mercilessly destroys everyone else. It's a weapon you don't even need to see it in action to know that it's overpowered. It's a sniper rifle that can see through walls. It's pinpoint accurate, and it has auto-targeting. If that's not overpowered, I don't know really what is. Couple of quick bonuses for you. The BFG from the Doom series, the iconic classic that almost doesn't even need to be said or talked about to a great extent. It fires out an energy blast that can clear entire rooms of demons. It's just an all-around great weapon that sucks through ammo quick but is really satisfying to use. And then finally, the golden gun from GoldenEye 007, the very definition of an overpowered weapon. This thing, it kills in one shot every single time. Has to reload every time that it fires, but as long as you don't miss, you're unstoppable. Another absolutely iconic weapon that deserves a quick shout out. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, the subscriptions. Click subscribe. Don't forget to enable all notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.